guys, welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be a little bit different as it is going to be segmented into two different parts. So the first half of this video, I'm probably going to be talking about what's on my screen right now, and then the second half I'll be doing a lot more like drawing and I'll be showing you rigging and stuff. But I told myself I wouldn't really stream in 2025 until I updated my stream overlays alongside with my starting soon screen and the ending stream screen. So I am probably going to take you guys along with me while I make my stream overlay. So to kind of start off, I want to say that I'm not proficient in making stream overlays. This is kind of like what worked for me for the most part. But to kind of make it simple, I think if you know what kind of like thing you want to stream and you know kind of like the screen ratios or anything like that, it kind of helps you imagine how you want your layout to be. So for myself, I actually have this kind of like purple, this purple rectangle, and this is actually a filled in rectangle of a screenshot I took pretty much precisely of one of the apps I use to screen mirror my iPad to my computer. So the one that I use currently is called Reflector 4. I believe it's not for free. I used to use a free program called PowerSoft, but I believe they've changed their branding a bit and it's no longer free. So I recommend looking into your options if you wish to screen mirror your iPad to your computer. There probably is other different types of screen mirroring programs out there, so definitely check it out. But for me, I decided to take a screenshot of what Reflector 4 looks like on my computer to see what the window kind of like ratio size is so that I could find how much I need to block out for it, because I mostly use Procreate when I'm streaming and drawing. So I want this to be kind of like my main area for things to be blocked in. So to start off, let me talk about my old layout first. So this is kind of the same ratio as Reflector 4. It's basically just whatever is my iPad length and width basically. And then I had a banner to show the program or tools that I was using. I have a little bit of a border. I have chat over here, my socials, and I have kind of like a faded background. So to show you guys what this actually looks like, gonna unclip that and I will get rid of my... So this is actually the illustration that I had for my overlay. Now in the second half of the video, I will be making a new one, so stay tuned for that if you want to see how I tend to do more of like my floral drawings. They're kind of like similar to the designs that I do on my notebooks. So if you want to see how I do like digital painting and planning for that, then you can check out that later half of the video. I'll make sure to put a timestamp somewhere on the screen. It's kind of like based off of a old illustration that I did with watercolor piece, but I really liked it as a background. So I decided to use it as my overlay. So what I did for this was to first lower the opacity. Adding my borders on top with kind of like I think it's like a multiplier or an overlay setting, and it kind of gives me this like faded effect on it, which I think is kind of nice because it's not too overbearing. So technically I don't have to have my background clipped to this border. I think I did for wanting to make this to have a gradient in the back or to make this have its own background. So I'm going to separate my borders so that I can move them independently. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So usually I think in my streams, I sit mostly on the left-hand side and I do cover a good amount of my Procreate screen sometimes. So I kind of want to switch it. So I'm gonna get rid of my backgrounds here. Probably my borders, or not my borders, my overlay. So I'm going to select both of these. I think I'm just gonna flip it. I know some people put like chat on top of their overlays or like within their screens. I think it really depends on what you want. Because I don't need a lot of chat showing technically. But this is mainly going to be my screen for just Procreate. So I'm going to make probably a separate one for Clip Studio Paint as well as a traditional one. So I think I'm gonna leave these here. Right down here, I'll leave like a text box for myself because I like putting who who and what I'm drawing usually as an indicator here. I'm still kind of like thinking if I want to add this little box, because I used to have it so that it would basically remain at the top to let people know what program I'm using alongside any of my tools. So I can still put who I'm drawing at the very bottom maybe. So this might also depend on how you want to capture your, I guess, like program of choice on OBS. So for me, I believe I have like pretty much the majority of our screen showing. So for this one, so this is my Procreate version. Then I have this version, which I'm going to shrink down and hold shift to make sure it's to scale. A blue color. And then we can see that this is vastly different compared to our purple version. So I can't really use the same overlay per se for Clip Studio Paint for Procreate or Procreate for Clip Studio Paint unless you want something to be like a lot larger or a lot smaller and have stuff like cut off or like awkward spacing. So this is kind of like our current layout. Now for what exactly I kind of want to do for the background, I actually have this particular piece already made. So I'm going to switch over to the other footage where I show you guys how I made kind of like this background, including some other elements. So I'll see you over there in a bit, and then I will come back probably after we're done doing the starting and ending screen, and we can place this back into our overlays to actually kind of like make a proper aesthetic for everything. So for the next few minutes, I am going to be taking you guys along with me while I do kind of not exactly the full process of me painting our starting screen and end screen, but you'll see the majority of the planning. So starting off, I decided to block in what I thought would be the general gist of my background, and then the little circles and blobs were actually helping me to do the placements for our objects. So in this case, because clovers were kind of like the main theme that I wanted to go with, and I find them a little bit easier to draw if I have like a circle template because they are flat. So I decided to do like a bunch of circles everywhere so that I could plan out where I wanted each clover to be. And then we have larkspurs, or I think they're like delphinium flowers that are going to be kind of like swaying back and forth. Now I thought I was going to have these flowers to be in the foreground, so I was going to like fully render them, but in the end I think the clovers already look kind of like overwhelming in the front, so I decided to put more things in the back instead, just to kind of give more room for the clovers to kind of stand on their own, and it'll make a little bit more sense a little bit later once I add in like my persona, the text, and using this particular clover background for our overlay as well. So I think I have a few sketches of what I wanted for my starting screen and ending screen. So if you're not familiar with a lot of like live streaming, typically before the stream starts for like a live streamer or content creator, you have like a starting soon screen. It could be like stream starting soon. I don't know, there's like a bunch of different phrasing that you can do that's like maybe more on brand with your character or your branding and all that. So it kind of gives people time to kind of like come into your stream without like missing the crucial beginning, I guess. Some people do like just chatting at the very beginning before they get into games or like anything like that, just to let people roll on in and they don't really miss anything too important. So it just like maybe a few minutes at the very beginning, you have an intro screen, and then it allows you to also get prepped behind the scenes. And then after that, usually you go into your actual stream, and that's where your stream layout and overlay will matter a little bit more. And then after that, usually when you end stream, most people don't end it super like just like right away, just in case if like live stream things cut off things, or if you want like chat to be kind of like say their goodbyes and everything. So it's kind of easier to have like an ending screen so people can have some time to linger before it kind of like cuts off. So similar to my old version, which I will put probably at the very end the comparison. I don't think I remembered to put it anywhere here, but basically I made like a night version of my starting soon screen to make my ending screen. So I'm going to use that same concept for today's. So you can see that I already drew in the chibi version of like my persona. So I wanted to make sure that I could section everything off because I want to be able to rig this into Live 2D. So my previous starting screen that I did that has like walnut on top of like a bunch of larkspur flowers and like leaves and stuff was done kind of like frame by frame, which is like totally a viable way of making your animation for, let's say, your starting screens, your overlays, whatever you want. But for me, because I've learned how to do rigging, I thought it'd be nice to have a little bit more of like slightly more fluid movement, I guess. So I'm going to take advantage of that and hopefully make about a 30-second loop of an animation of my starting soon screen alongside with my persona kind of like doodling on the iPad. And I tried to make sure that I didn't miss any areas, even though I knew they were going to be covered by our clover background. So my persona is going to be sitting behind the set of painted clovers at the very front, and then behind my persona I will have a bunch of like little grass blades along with like I think a silhouette of one of the larkspurs, and then the larkspurs will also kind of like sway around. And then for the night version, which I don't remember if I do this like after I finish drawing basically the entirety of my chibi and kind of like sectioned it off, but I will add like a multiply layer to make like a different lighting, and then we'll add a few like fireflies or glowing lights, and I will also rig my chibi to be sleeping instead, which is kind of how I had my walnut version as well, which I think I like that lighting a little bit better on my walnut one because it has like a glow on the character itself rather than just in the front. So I kind of wish I added that to mine, but I don't want to really fiddle with it right now. Maybe in the future I'll do another updated version of this, but for now we'll just leave it. So I also made sure to put the ending stream text and my little ellipses, I guess, for each one to be on separate layers before we prep it to do for our rigging, which we are going to be doing in Live 2D. So in Live 2D, I opened up my file, which is like a PSD file, and I went ahead and started to basically reorganize my parameters, which is kind of like in this middle window. And then on the very left has all of my drawing parts. So I went ahead and also sorted everything out between foreground and background, and then different elements. So like my character's body, anything that's attached to my character's head. So like the sprout, the hair, the eyes, the mouth is all on the same thing. After when I sorted everything out, I went ahead and started to fiddle around with how I wanted to do the pretty simple animation for our text. So I just have a kind of like a starting portion where the text is just already on the screen because I kind of want this to be seamlessly looping for the most part. So it was easier for me to have the text already placed, and then the only thing that's going to be really moving for the text is the ellipses. So I kind of have them moving back and forth, kind of like as if it's loading. I've seen a lot of people do loading screens as well. I think there's like a lot of fun ways you can play around with your branding, but for me, I just wanted to like keep it something similar to my previous one, but kind of like a small upgrade, if anything, because that drawing is like super old, and then that drawing is based off of another drawing that was like even older, so I just wanted something new. So let's talk a little bit more about the rigging again. So the reason why I have to do all of these little, I don't know what you want to call these if you're not familiar with the rigging in Live 2D. The best way I can think about it is like being able to manipulate objects and have movement depending on how you change them, I guess. And you can set them onto keyforms and have that as your parameter. Then you can take all those elements of your drawings and your parameters into Live 2D's animation portion of their program. And I can basically start to time all of my parameters on a timeline and set them to move at certain times, and it'll kind of fill in the spaces a little bit to make seamless animation. So it's kind of like the easiest way for me to make something not gonna lie, something simple to be a little bit more complicated to get like slightly better results. Just because like my skill level with Live 2D isn't like super high, I still would like to play around with it more, but my lack of patience with this is a little bit low at this point. But with kind of all of our parameters like mapped out, I went ahead and opened up a animation file in Live 2D, and I started to place all the little keyforms. So all the little dots that you see on the little grid on the right are all my keyforms, and you can kind of see where I'm placing certain parameters to be timed to appear or to move at a certain point. So that's kind of like going to be figuring out how I want the entire starting screen to look like. And then after that, I exported our starting soon screen, and then I worked on our night version, which will be our ending screen. So right here, I put back the filter. I have our fireflies moving, or our lights. I also have the same movements for the breathing and our like leaves and flowers that are moving in the background to be exactly the same as the ones I had on my starting soon screen, because I didn't really want to fiddle with it. So for the animation for my chibi this time, I wanted her to kind of nod off, and then eventually when you tilt too forward, you kind of like jerk back a little bit. So I wanted a little bit of that to kind of be like how I wanted to portray me sleeping and dozing off, I guess. I think I'll show you guys a little bit more of the back end a little bit later in real time, but this is kind of like me showing you the ending and starting screen right ahead in Streamlabs OBS instead, and just kind of testing it out before I actually made my overlays. So I'll probably put in a little bit of snippets of me talking about how I use this background of my clovers into my overlays to kind of have a more consistent look. So let's go ahead and go back to real-time me, I guess. Okay, so now that we had the background done, I have the rigging for my own persona alongside with our text and everything already rigged. I went ahead and saved a separate version of our background, which happens to be this one. So I'm going to copy it over. So I have my iPad version kind of like already open. And what I'm going to do is basically replace this image with this one. After pasting in our background, you can kind of see like it is kind of like the perfect ratio. So I don't really have to do too much adjusting. I could like stretch it a little bit if I wanted to, or make it a little bit bigger if I wanted to fill up more of the space. But kind of where the clovers are sat in this particular layout, I actually quite like it. But what I'm going to do is lower the opacity. Forgot to get rid of my other one. We're going to lower the opacity on this. So I still want to keep kind of like this blue aesthetic. To keep kind of the aesthetic almost equal, I'm going to put it about 40%. So for some of these other elements, I might add a overlay layer. I might copy this filter so we can add it to chat as well. So I do think this is what our main overlay is going to look like. Now the problem is that for me to place my Procreate and stuff behind my borders without like overlapping the little grass and clover detailing, I do have to make sure that this is kind of like hollowed out. So I'm going to take our magic wand. I'm going to find where our border is. I'm going to select the inside portion of where I want it to be hollowed out. I'm going to invert my selection, and then on a new layer, I'm going to place a kind of like a gray background. And we're going to clip this gradation onto our gray background. I'm going to pull up this image again and also clip it so that we kind of have this hollowed out area now with the hollow out center for my program of choice. After that, I have the background color of what I want it to be, the prominent color for my overlay. And then I have my design kind of just like lightly placed on top to kind of give it more of that like softer look. And I think this is what I'm going to do for my current overlay for now. It's nothing too fancy. It's just kind of like a small revamp, if anything. Today, I guess it'll be Saturday for you guys. So I guess I might stream today after I come back from a little group dinner with friends. And we'll see how the layout looks. So I'll see you then. Okay, actually I lied. So here's my starting soon screen. I'll probably put a video of like the full little loop somewhere in the video alongside with the ending stream. But you can see that this is kind of like my iPad layout. A new version. So I have new overlay main. Oh, I think it actually looks quite cute like this. I'm also gonna move chat. Not this one, so I'm gonna delete. Where is my chat? Here it is. Slide it on over. Kind of like that. I might even make my own tablet asset a little bit later so I can actually have like a visual representation of my iPad. I opened up Clip Studio Paint so that I can kind of fit this in here a little bit better. So that it's pretty much just my drawing space. We'll see. Maybe for now I'll shrink it so that we can see my entirety of my Clip Studio Paint. Drawing, I'm going to move down here. The thing is, it's like I used to have like a weird gap for certain things just because depending on which platform I was streaming on, it was more easier to have my alerts in one spot, but I realized it looks very empty otherwise. So let's change the width of our chat box to be fairly small. I forgot I had this. This is actually a good placeholder for now. We'll move, whoops. I'm actually gonna lock my overlays. I actually forgot about that. Leave that at the top. I think I have it as who, so I'll put this down here probably. Okay, so I think we are good. I'll show you guys kind of like a little mock-up. I probably will put in my VTuber so that we can actually see it alongside with that and do kind of like a mock trial. Okay, so I feel like there is an issue right now, which is currently Reflector 4 is not working with my Procreate like at all for some reason. So if I go to my home screen, I can swipe back and forth. For some reason, when I click on Procreate, it completely freezes. So, okay, this feels really stupid. I think because of that error I was having. So apparently there's a setting on here that's called Project Canvas, and if you click it, it basically won't allow you to like show the movement of when you're drawing and panning on the screen and all that stuff. So if you turn it off, it goes back to normal. But the problem is now is that my iPad ratio is like totally off. So if I basically full screen the image that I have currently on my canvas, you can see that I think the top and the bottom are actually cut off. So I probably have to redo my layout just a smidge more. That, or I'll just leave it like this so we don't have like the tools in the way for the most part. Because I don't think it's as necessary to have the menus on the screen. But you can see like now I can move and zoom without any problem. So and then moving on to our tablet version, I might scooch myself over. Yeah, I might fix some of the borders on this a little bit more to see if I can fit it a little bit better with my current layout of Clip Studio Paint, since I don't really adjust it all that much. And then moving along, we have our traditional one. So, ooh. So I have, wait, is my webcam being so finicky? Calibration. Okay, so for some reason, if I move this wire, it disconnects my webcam. So I'm gonna have to find a different way to connect everything. But this is kind of like what the traditional setup would look like for the most part. There is some like, wait a second, I'm an idiot. Let's do this. I forgot. I thought I made this like the wrong size. I forgot I basically like full screened it almost. Where is it? Where? Let me move myself actually. This is why it's good to troubleshoot. So, where am I? So, but you can see that the webcam works. So I have my VTuber alongside with my other webcam so that I could do traditional mediums for like I don't know, like watercolor painting, gouache painting, whatever it is. I just have to find like a proper setup to actually get like a good top view of everything. But this is kind of like my sketchbook right now. So yeah, I think that's what it's going to be like for future streams. Like I said, I am going to try to fix this layout a little bit more so that maybe we can optimize it a little bit more with my Clip Studio Paint layout. Whoops. And then for my iPad layout, we can actually stream maybe on Saturday or Sunday. We'll see. But hopefully you guys enjoyed watching today's video and watching me make both my starting screen and my ending screen, which I think I'll use for today's session instead of my usual outro. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video and hopefully catch you on a stream. And stream more often, I guess. Bye!